Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Packers Unscripted from Packers.com. I am Mike Spofford, joined by the one and only Wes Hodkiewicz. We're coming to you here from our studios at Lambeau Field. Wes, for another double duty episode because we only have one show this week. No, not your fault this time. Only one show this week because of the Thursday game in Detroit on Thanksgiving. So we will review the Vikings, we will preview the Lions, and try to cram it all into one show. 23-6 was the final score at Lambeau Field over Minnesota. A solid effort in all three phases by the Packers. To me, this game came down to three things. Emanuel Wilson's breakout game, a massive turnover on special teams that altered the course of the football game, and then an absolutely smothering defense by the Packers in the second half. So I'll let you take whichever one of those you want to start with.
You know what? I want to start with the Emanuel Wilson story, if I may.
Sure.
I know everybody likes to talk offense. Offense sometimes gets a little bit too many eyeballs on it. But this was a very precarious position Green Bay was put into because Josh Jacobs, by all intents and purposes, probably was healthy enough to play in this game. But you got the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving at Ford Field on that turf 4 days later. Do you really want to rush him back after the bone bruise and then have him play two punishing football games in a matter of 4 days? They decide to roll the dice with Emanuel Wilson and also Chris Brooks and use those two in a platoon to sort of navigate this matchup. Boy golly, did Emanuel Wilson prove the Green Bay Packers correct.
Yep.
His first NFL start ends up becoming the first 100-yard rushing performance individually by the Packers this season. He plows into the end zone for 2 touchdowns, and in doing so, becomes the first Packers player, and only the second one since the merger, to have 100-plus rushing yards, 2+ touchdowns in their first career start since Sam Congatto in 2005. And I felt like this actually was that type of performance. Emanuel didn't break like a huge explosive run, but he continually pushed the pile. You know what really impresses me about him? This has nothing to do with him being an undrafted free agent, nothing about him being a former Division II star at Fort Valley State. It's the fact that he has a really explosive burst, but he still maintains the power to really launch himself into linebackers.
Yeah.
That's a unique combination. A lot of running backs don't have it. And in this particular game, the Packers rode him to victory. With all the mistakes that the Minnesota Vikings were playing, the Packers were able to play it safe and rest a lot of guys, be able to navigate this type of matchup by establishing the run and running the ball continually.
Yeah, what I really liked seeing from Wilson in his first NFL start and first really, truly extended action we got to see was the combination that he does bring in terms of both his vision and his power. There were some tough runs where he had to make a quick decision with his feet at the line of scrimmage to get what was there, even if it was only just 3 or 4 yards, but to get what was there to move the chains to put the offense in a good position. And there were other times where he kept the pads down and he powered through. I mean, that first touchdown run he had at the goal line was really impressive. The second effort that he showed there. And the reason you're allowed to have a second effort is because you have the pad level and the balance to absorb the first hit and stay on your feet to allow yourself to power across the goal line. I really liked what Wilson did there. As far as how this game unfolded, the Vikings just weren't doing much on offense. The defense got a huge stop in the red zone.
Yep.
Minnesota was running the ball with Jones and Mason, pushing the ball down the field on the ground, and it came down to a 3rd and 1 in the red zone. They got a little tricky with T.J. Hawkinson coming across, taking the direct snap. The Packers get the stuff there. They go for it on 4th and 1. They hand it off to Jordan Mason, and he gets stuffed as well. So the turnover on downs in the red zone was big. Other than that, all the Vikings were able to do was kick 2 very long field goals, 52 and 59 yards. So they were never really threatening the end zone on those other 2 possessions. But the game goes into halftime with just a 10-6 lead. Packers were getting the ball coming out at the start of the second half, and you're thinking, okay, you go down and get a score, you go up, a couple of scores, and then let's see what happens. Well, the Packers offense got across the 50, but then had a penalty stalled out. The Packers have to punt, and then that's when the game changed because Zane Anderson made probably what would have to be considered the play of the year on special teams so far for the Packers in 2025. Miles Price, the young punt returner and dangerous punt returner for the Vikings, the ball is sailing over his head inside the 10-yard line. So he gives up on it and says, okay, I need to go block somebody so that the Packers can't down the ball close to the goal line. And in the midst of engaging Zane Anderson, Daniel Whelan's backspin end over end, the Aussie-style punt, comes back, and Anderson sees the ball. Price doesn't. Anderson shoves Price into the ball. The contact makes it live. He falls on it. So the Packers end up getting the touchdown a couple of plays later. That was sort of the start of the second half touchdown. And when this game got to 17-6, it was pretty much curtains at that point.
An excellent overview of this, and I want to look at it from two different perspectives, if I may. Am I allowed to do that?
Sure.
The first one is, I know there was a lot of conversation earlier this season about the decision to have Romeo Doubs inside the 20. These are the reasons why a lot of times you want to have a veteran player, or at least somebody that knows the game situation. I'm not saying anything about Price here. I'm saying this strictly in terms of the Packers strategy. Price, by staying close to the ball inside the 10-yard line, made himself susceptible to being pushed into it, which, as Zane was telling us after the game, is exactly what he was trying to do as one of the Flyers on that play. He saw where the ball was, and it was such a quirky bounce. I mean, it was just an odd bounce where it just kind of pushed right to the right. It was almost like it went on like a trajectory, like it hit like an invisible wall and just darted towards the sidelines. It was great by Daniel. As he'd been saying, he's been looking for that type of good bounce all season.
Right.
Because at some point there is just a little bit of luck involved there. But the fact is, like, a lot of times you'll see Rome when he's back there, he will evade or look for a block or something like that, and then just whatever happens inside the 20 happens, but you're not leaving yourself open to a muff punt by running into it. Anderson drives him into the ball and was able to jump right on it. And it was hilarious listening to him talk about it afterwards, because he's like, that pile felt like forever as the referees were trying to get it going. And
he was on top of it right away and was on the bottom of it, but the referees couldn't sort it out. And Anderson had the ball the whole time.
And Anderson said, I mean, there was guys from his team saying, Zane, do you got it? Do you got it? There's guys from the Vikings that are jousting for it or asking Price if he had gotten it. And then finally it comes out, and here he is at the 5-yard line. 2 plays later, boom, boom, Emanuel Wilson plows that thing into the end zone for a score. And really the game-breaking, kind of back-breaking score in this one. What I love about it is there was a time probably about 10 years ago, and I think this is one of the big, really nice shifts that Green Bay has made under the Brian Gutekunst era, where they've dedicated themselves to developing players who might not necessarily contribute on defense or offense, but are core special teams guys. Zane Anderson epitomizes that. He was here for now in his 3rd season, but has very rarely played on defense unless really in a case of emergency. And he's filled in well there when he has. But the fact is they have him as a core 4 guy, and for so long he was kind of a personal protector on punt coverage. And then really since Corey Ballentine left, they pushed him outside to be opposite of Bo Melton now, and he's been money. And as Daniel said afterwards, they call him White Lightning, and he got down there in a hurry. And listening to Whelan will never be one to really give himself any credit. He talked about having the benefit of having 2 of the fastest flyers in the National Football League at his disposal, but for him also to have 3 punts inside the 20 in this game, a field position maestro. That's why Green Bay was able to win this game. They made J.J. McCarthy go the long way, and he could not do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was a Viking special teams unit as a whole that is one of the best in the league. And Rich Bisaccia talked about that last Thursday before the game. And when you see Will Reichard makes field goals of 52 and 59 yards, 2 times on punts, the Packers got pinned inside the 10-yard line. This is, and Miles Price has had some dynamic returns this year. This is a Viking special teams unit that is at the top of the league, and because of the turnover, the play by Anderson, the Packers were actually able to win the special teams battle against one of the best units out there. So that was huge. And then just the fact that the Packers got the 11-point lead, a multi-score lead at 17-6. And as I wrote in my rapid reaction editorial after the game, hey, Jeff Hafley called his shot, man. He stood there at the podium on Thursday. He was absorbing all the questions about where's the pass rush, like what's happening. And he said, hey, look here, the Packers as a whole, as an entire team, have not been able to play the type of game they want to play. The Packers had not had a multi-scored lead since Pittsburgh. And what did we see in Pittsburgh with a multi-score lead? Micah Parsons slammed the door, right? the Packers finally get another multi-score lead after the turnover and the touchdown, and then the pass rush was just unleashed. And J.J. McCarthy was overmatched. The Vikings offensive line was overmatched. Parsons gets 2 sacks. Devontae Wyatt gets 2 sacks. 2 of those almost result in safeties. Mm-hmm. Twice the Vikings are punting essentially 11-yard punt snaps from the 1 to the back of the end zone when normally a punt snap is 15 yards. Yeah. They're punting with short snaps at the back of the end zone twice in the game. The Packers take advantage of the field position, add a couple of field goals, get it to a 3-score game, and as you had said, took the air out of the ball and all that and just got the clock to 0 and got to the finish line in this one. But this just shows you what the Packers defense is capable of when they have a multi-score lead to protect and the opponent has to throw the ball because you can't just try to grind out yards on the ground and, risk spending 7, 8, 9 minutes on the clock to get 1 score when you're down by a couple of scores. That's where the Vikings found themselves, and they were overmatched.
One thing I loved about this matchup with what Green Bay did defensively was it was the Micah Parsons show again. He went over 10 sacks on the season with his 2 sacks, 3 quarterback hits, numerous pressures, some of which helped lead to those Devontae Wyatt opportunities.
For sure.
But it came in all shapes, all forms, all sizes. You saw Warren Brinson, the Packers' rookie 6th-round pick, have 5 pressures in this game and his first career sack, sharing that with Isaiah McDuffie in a really interesting-looking front. I don't know. If we still had one what you might have missed, my goodness, man, the way to break that down where you got Devontae Wyatt lined up as a 5-tech edge, 7-tech, edge, and then you have, all these plethora of defenders lined up everywhere. It was just everything was in fluid sync motion.
Yeah.
And Warren Brinson never stopped moving his feet. He just kept charging through the middle, and he ends up driving up some of that contact there with J.J. McCarthy and Isaiah McDuffie, also on a blitz. Was able to finish that play. It was so beautiful to watch. And for Green Bay, they were leaking, for rushing yards in the first half, 86 yards between Mason and Jones. Those guys had a combined -3 yards in the second half. The only rushing yards the Vikings had were off of J.J. McCarthy scrambles. Now, you could say part of that being, okay, well, the Vikings kind of got away from what they were doing well, but realistically, once they fell into 17-6, then they were having to sort of get out of their game plan, which I think honestly was, let's just try to run those 2 as much as we can and see what kind of opportunities happen with the passing game from there.
Right.
When J.J. McCarthy had to drop back and he got into 3rd and long situations, it did not end well for Minnesota. And what I really liked about the defensive performance, 3 straight 3-and-outs after the turnover, the giveaway, and then it was followed by 2 interceptions. McDuffie's first career interception, and then Evan Williams putting the icing on the cake. You wrote about it on Saturday. Micah Parsons has been the closer for this defense, and he was again. But my goodness, the setup men, the holds, everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it was incredible to watch it all come together.
Yeah, it was a heck of a catch by McDuffie on his interception. I'll give him credit for that as well. And Rashawn Gary coming around on the edge and getting a little piece of the ball as McCarthy was throwing that, so that threw off the whole trajectory of the pass, and McDuffie was able to make the diving catch. Evan Williams' interception later on the bad overthrow. Unfortunately, we found out on Monday J.J. McCarthy was probably concussed at the time he threw the second interception. If you look at the film, the 2 plays leading up to the second interception, he scrambled and took a hit when he went down, and then he was also knocked down in the pocket when he threw a pass on the next play. Those plays did not look good for J.J. McCarthy, and is probably where he sustained the head injury, and then he threw the second interception. But the Packers defense just completely overwhelmed Minnesota in the second half. And it speaks to, when we talk about having the multi-score lead, putting the other team in that position, it speaks to how big the red zone stop was in the first half, because if the Vikings decide to just kick the field goal there, I think Kevin O'Connell decided he went for it there on 4th and 1, because even though he had failed on 3rd and 1, he went for it on 4th and 1 because he decided, well, we're probably not going to beat the Packers at Lambeau Field by kicking field goals.
Right, so, which is a fair play.
Which you can understand that. You can understand that decision, and the Packers getting the stop there, allowing no points on that drive. That's what set up being able to then have the bigger lead in the second half and go from there. We do need to turn the page to the Lions If you're ready to do that, the game is coming up here very quickly. But before we do that, we'll pay some bills and hear from our sponsors. Sirius XM NFL Radio delivers hard-hitting analysis and up-to-the-minute NFL news that true football fanatics need 24/7, 365. At Cousin Subs, we have something for everyone, like our Wisconsin cheese curds, mac and cheese, golden fries, and creamy shakes, all paired with your favorite sub or sub in a bowl. Cousin Subs, 50-plus years of better. Pit Boss Grills, the official grill of Packers tailgating at Lambeau or at your house. Take your game day to the next level with a Pit Boss wood pellet grill. Pit Boss Grills available at Menards. Hey Packers fans, we always knew Lambeau Field was a wonder, but now it's official. Learn more about all the wonders of Wisconsin at travelwisconsin.com/wonders. Thanksgiving Day in Detroit, Wes. We've done it multiple times in the past. I've lost count now of how many times I've covered Packers Lions in Detroit on Thanksgiving.
It's only my third, actually.
Okay.
I think it was 13 2 years ago, and now this one.
Okay. And
I've had two at home.
And I believe I covered 3 before that, 07, 09, and 11.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, would be up to 7. Would this be my 7th one then? Wow.
We'll have to ask ESPN Stats and Info.
And it will be the third consecutive Thanksgiving game for the Packers, having played at Detroit 2 years ago and then hosting a Thanksgiving game last year. But here's where we are, Wes. The Packers are 7-3-1, just behind the 8-3 Chicago Bears in the NFC North. The Detroit Lions are right on the Packers' heels at 7-4. They are coming off of a wild kind of shootout type overtime win against the New York Giants. The Lions tied the game at the right at the end of regulation with a long 59-yard field goal by Jake Bates, and then Jahmyr Gibbs' first play from scrimmage in overtime goes 69 yards for a touchdown, and that's what wins it for Detroit. The Lions have been, they've been up and down this season. There's no two ways about it. This is a team that only lost 2 games all regular season last year. They've lost 4, and they were on the verge of losing number 5 on Sunday, but this is kind of their bread and butter, right? They know they play at home on Thanksgiving every year. They know the stakes of the game. The crowd is going to be there. This is not one of those road games where you're going to see a lot of Green Bay Packer fans in the stands, because this is the game the Detroit fans always come out for. Big challenge here for Green Bay.
I'll be honest with you, Mike. I really have had a hard time making sense of the Lions this season. As much as fans wanted to talk about Green Bay and sort of the ups and downs and the inconsistency, I think has been the big buzzword. The Lions have kind of been on that similar track, specifically offensively. There's been times where Jahmyr Gibbs and this running game look absolutely unstoppable. There's been times where I thought Jared Goff has played like an MVP. Last week, Amon-Ra St. Brown was incredible. But then you go back 2 weeks ago against Philadelphia, and it looked like offensively they couldn't do a single thing right.
Yeah.
Right? And Goff completed, 14 of 34 passes, something like that.
Yeah, he was well below 50% in the game.
They've done a little bit of everything, but you know what that is, Mike? It makes them dangerous, and they're super talented. They play well at home. I will be interested to see how they handle back-to-back games on their turf in that field. I mean, that is a punishing thing to do, regardless of playing at Ford Field. Just in general, playing twice in 4 days on a turf field is not easy. So we'll be interested to see how they look. But, I mean, they're right up there. And if the Green Bay Packers are going to make a claim this season to be a Super Bowl contender, to be one of the NFC's elite, these are the type of matchups you have to go through. They took care of business against the Vikings, and they did so in a handily manner, something that we all talked about. We wanted to see them sort of just dominate another team, right? Not have it down to the final 2 minutes of a game, really have this thing in hand. They did that against Minnesota. Well, now you're going to be facing a team that is looking more complete, but at the same time also had to go through a gritty down-to-the-wire game with the Giants, just like the Packers did. So just very interested to watch this one. It's going to be really fascinating.
Yeah, and you mentioned the inconsistencies on offense. They've gone through the transition. They lose Ben Johnson, obviously. Their offensive coordinator goes to coach the Bears. John Morton takes over as offensive coordinator a few weeks ago. Dan Campbell takes the play calling from Morton, and he's the one calling the plays, the head coach now on offense. There's been some ups and downs on the defense, though, as well, because when you look at, the Lions' defense was really, really tough against the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia, a tough place to play. The Lions were not able to win that game, but their defense looked incredibly stout. Then they come back 7 days later. They're playing at home against a 2-win Giants team, and they give up 500-plus yards. They're on the field for 77 plays, which could definitely factor into this one on a short week. The Lions defense had 77 snaps on Sunday. The Packers defense only had 44. So that'll be something to watch as Thursday's game unfolds. But yet at the same time, you go, well, but this is a defense that has Aiden Hutchinson, and it has, Kirby Joseph, and I know Kirby Joseph's on the injury report right now, but you know the talent is there. They got Aleem McNeil back in the middle of that defensive line, which is a big piece for them. So I'm just going to throw it out to you right away. Keys to victory here for Green Bay. What do the Packers have to do to come out on top?
Well, they have to stop Gibbs. And no disrespect, I mean, David Montgomery too, although Gibbs has been more of the home run threat this season. And I feel like if you go back to that first matchup, what did Green Bay do really well at its place? It dominated the trenches, right? The Packers defensive front imposed their will against the Lions. Afterwards, Micah Parsons talking about that matchup with Penei Sewell, how he's like, you're going to be my new rival, right? Just like how Lane Johnson was his rival with the Eagles. And
sure, he
had a really good game against Sewell. So I think being able to contain Gibbs in the home run threat he provides, it's kind of similar to what the thing is with Saquon, right? With the Eagles, it's like he can beat you on 1 or 2 plays, and that could be the game.
Yep.
Gibbs has that same factor, because if you allow him to make this a 3rd and short game, that's when Amon-Ra St. Brown becomes really dangerous. Now, they don't have Sam Laporta. They lose one of their big needle movers there at tight end due to the back surgery.
Yeah, both of these teams losing big weapons at tight end, who were huge parts of their offense, with Laporta on one side, Tucker Kraft on the other.
Yeah, and the Lions defense, somebody had asked me about this in inbox and what I thought about them, and the thing is that, yeah, they've been inconsistent at times, but statistically they are better than they were last year. The difference is that the bench doesn't go very deep. They kind of are what they are as far as their starters are concerned, and if they're all out there and they're all healthy, probably one of the better units in the league. I think Muhammad is a really intriguing pass rusher. He's been a nice compliment this season to Hutchinson, and I love their linebackers with Derek Barnes and obviously Jack Campbell. A couple years back, Campbell and Gibbs, that was 2 draft picks that kind of raised everybody's eyebrows, and they've been sort of the cornerstones for what Detroit's been building here. So it's not going to be an easy matchup, but if Green Bay can manage to win the ground game, especially that would help if Josh Jacobs is back in the fold, that is, I feel like, the most true path to victory in this one.
Yeah, the one thing I would say that's the caveat to the Giants and what they did offensively with the 500-plus yards and all the points that they put up against the Lions, they did run 2 trick plays for touchdowns, and the Lions clearly just weren't prepared for Jameis Winston and the Giants to come out with all the trickeration and whatnot in order, and they were able to score twice. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen a team score twice on trick plays and then lose the game, but the Giants managed to, and then their defensive coordinator got fired on Monday. So there's that. I don't want to make this. You know me, I don't like to oversimplify things. But in this day and age of the sound bites and the quippy quotes, to me this game comes down to tackle Jahmyr Gibbs and block Aiden Hutchinson. Those are the 2 guys who can give you a long day on either side of the ball, right? And if the Packers can somehow just contain the impact that those 2 guys are going to have, I really like Green Bay's chances in this game. But as you said with Gibbs, Jahmyr Gibbs has become as big a home run hitter as there is at running back in the NFL right now. He's up there with Barkley. He's up there with Jonathan Taylor of the Colts, a guy who can take it the distance at any moment. In baseball, you can intentionally walk the home run hitter when you want to and not have to deal with him for, a couple of more innings. It doesn't work that way with running backs in the NFL. You have to tackle him. You have to contain him. He's going to get the ball. He's going to get it a lot. He has really taken over in terms of the touches, the 1-2 punch with David Montgomery. Montgomery's still doing his thing, but he doesn't get the ball as often as Gibbs does. No. Gibbs is a much, much bigger part of this offense now. And on the other side, the Packers completely neutralized Hutchinson in week 1, but that was his first game back from the long layoff and the really bad injury that he had last season. Hutchinson is looking a lot more like the Aiden Hutchinson that was on his way to potentially Defensive Player of the Year last year before he got hurt. And the Packers have to they have to neutralize him again the best they can.
Yeah, one thing I want to add, too, that I think it really bodes well for Green Bay, they have to have a better performance against the run. But one thing that's going to be very different than this game than it was against Minnesota is you're going to see more base defense. It's just the way you have to match up with the Lions, especially on early downs. And by and large, the Packers rested. When you look at their base, I mean, Colby Wooden, his snap counts were down. Nazir Stackhouse played 3 snaps. You look at, Kingsley Enagbari was able to kind of have some time off. They should be relatively fresh, in addition to the fact that, again, we'll have to see what it all means, the Packers estimated that Quay Walker would have been returning in limited capacity if they would have practiced on Monday.
Yeah.
That's big after he didn't practice at all last week, and potentially having him available. And if not, then you'll go with Isaiah McDuffie. But that you go back to that first game, Mike, it's the way they played in the defensive front, and it's the way the linebackers attacked. The way that Walker, Cooper, and when he was out there, Isaiah McDuffie got after Gibbs and Montgomery. Both of those guys being neutralized. I want to say they kept him under 100 yards despite having somewhere around 30 carries. You do that again, you're going to have a chance.
Yeah, and you really like the way the Packers linebackers are playing. That whole group of 4. I know Walker didn't play in this last game, but Quay Walker, Edgerrin Cooper, Isaiah McDuffie, Tyron Hopper, when he gets in there, what that entire group is doing has been really impressive. The other thing we need to mention on defense, Keyshawn Nixon exited the Minnesota game with a shoulder stinger, did not return to the game, was estimated as a did not participate as far as the injury report, the practice estimation on Monday. Kamal Haddon stepped in, got his first defensive action of the season. Young guy who was a 6th-round draft pick of the Kansas City Chiefs last year. He didn't make it in Kansas City. The Packers signed him to the practice squad. Spent all year last year on the practice squad. Maybe got 1 or 2 elevations for game day. But then he's been on the active roster this year. He made the team coming out of training camp, but he hasn't played.
No.
And suddenly he got thrown into action, and he very well could have a big role in this game against the Lions. It was good to see what he was able to do and sort of getting his feet wet against the Vikings. This becomes a whole nother challenge now, playing the Detroit Lions on the road on Thanksgiving in a much, much bigger game.
You can see why, and it's such a small sample size, but watching a little bit of his clips and his film from that game against the Vikings, he plays with the physicality that Jeff Hafley likes with his cornerbacks, right?
Yeah.
There's the one play he was not happy about. It looked like he probably got held on it. I remember watching it as it played out. That side judge was not calling anything in that game. So what does he do on the next play? He literally does an illegal hands to the face and pie faces Justin Jefferson during his jam at the line of scrimmage. It goes uncalled too. So, I mean, there's an edginess that he plays with. There's a confidence and a swagger that he plays with. But certainly this is a much different challenge if he is called upon. Now, want to also mention Nate Hobbs was estimated as a limited participant on Monday as well. What will it all mean, Basil? I don't know. But the Packers could have him in the cards as well, which would be really good if you don't have Nixon, who was estimated as a DMP because of the neck stinger. So,
and even just from a depth standpoint, to have another option there as well, because next up would be Bo Melton at cornerback, and like Haddon, he actually hasn't played on defense this season. If Hobbs is actually available on Thursday as another option, even if maybe Haddon would take those snaps if Nixon can't play, but just having another guy as in the depth equation would certainly be helpful.
It was fun talking to Haddon in the locker room after the game too, because he mentioned he actually went up to Xavier McKinney before the game. Obviously, he doesn't want Keyshawn Nixon getting hurt, but he told Xavier, he's like, I'm going to get my first NFL tackle today. He ended up getting 4 of them, I believe it was, but just predicted it, and it happened. And unfortunately, when Nixon went out, he said, it was almost instincts. He's like, he saw he was not instantaneously getting up. He runs out on the field and held his own. And also a tip of the cap to Carrington Valentine, who has gone from being that next guy up to, once again, like, it just seems like it's worked out every single year he's been in the NFL. The second half of the season,
yeah, there he is. Number 24 is on the rise. One other game I just want to talk about.
I almost said 37. Did you catch that?
What's that?
I almost said 37. And that was like, he is 24 now, right? And then you finished it for me.
He's number 24. One other game I want to get your thoughts on, and then we got to go. So Black Friday, which has become now another NFL tradition, a game the day after Thanksgiving. It's the Bears at the Eagles. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles, all close games, have beaten the Vikings, the Packers, and the Lions. Now, this is their last NFC North opponent. The Eagles get the Bears in Philadelphia. The Bears are 8-3, sitting on top of the NFC North. There's going to be a lot of eyeballs on this game, Wes, and a lot of people around the NFL knowing that the Bears don't have that strength of victory in their schedule, right, in terms of the teams they've beaten. It's like, okay, here you are, Chicago, go out and prove it. And the Eagles are coming off of an absolutely atrocious loss, blowing a 21-0 lead in Dallas. They don't score for the last 40 minutes of the game, and they lose 24-21 to the Cowboys on a walk-off field goal by Brandon Aubrey. This is a big one. Bears against the Eagles, Black Friday. It's going to have major implications all across the NFC in terms of the playoff picture.
This is the measuring stick game for Chicago. I was talking as recently as last Thursday about how they haven't really had like that big quality victory yet. Something that really jumps off the page that tells you they're not just a team that's beating who's in front of them, but someone who can really be trifled with in the NFL. Much like Detroit, they hung in there. They won a gritty, close game at the end. They found a way to kind of claw themselves forward. But now you're going up against one of the top teams from not only the NFC, but the National Football League. And on the same token, massive matchup now for the Eagles, who have kind of a gut check after they came up short. So very interesting chess match that's going to play out. I was looking at the schedule for this week. It's very quizzical to me, like, and the Black Friday thing is not going away. We've also seen the quality of those games kind of rise up here over the last year or so.
No doubt.
But it's all on these these 4 games coming up, and it seems like then Sunday night, Monday night. I can't believe none of those games got. Are they not allowed to flex in Week 13? I don't know how that.
I'm not sure.
Did you look at what the rest of the schedule's like? For the
No, I actually didn't look. I've been so focused on just Thursday and Friday with the 3 top teams in the NFC North are all going to have played by the time we're eating our turkey leftovers on Friday evening.
Right. So after all the tryptophan has worked its way through your system over the weekend, you'll get to watch the Denver Broncos take on the Washington Commanders in Sunday Night Football. And then Monday Night Football, if you have any turkey sandwiches left, you might want to have already have eaten them right before this game so you fall asleep. The New York Giants and the New England Patriots in a battle of 2-10 versus 10-2 teams.
Ouch.
So all the eggs are in the first 2-day baskets of this weekend, it seems like, with the Thursday games for Thanksgiving, and then obviously the Black Friday games. So.
Yeah, and from the Packers' perspective, by the time Friday night rolls around, the Packers could be anywhere from 3rd place in the NFC North all the way to 1st place in the NFC North. It could fall anywhere in there, so we'll see what happens.
By the end of the weekend, when you talk about the entire NFC, top to bottom, you could be anywhere.
A lot of things could be shifting around. We're getting to that time of year, but we will call it a wrap on this edition of Packers Unscripted. Be sure to continue following all of our coverage of the team, and we will have all of the coverage of the Thanksgiving Day game from Detroit on Packers.com. For Wes, I am Mike. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving, and we will see you next time.